the ancient path of awakening Buddhist wisdom and Vedic teachings for the sleeping soul. 1. The nature of your true self. In the silence between your thoughts, there exists a vast ocean of consciousness that has been waiting for you since the beginning of time. This consciousness is not separate from you. It is not something you need to find or achieve. It is what you already are, hidden beneath the layers of conditioning, fear, and forgetting that have accumulated over countless lifetimes. The ancient sages of India understood this truth deeply. They called it Atman, the eternal self that dwells within every living being. The Buddha spoke of it as the nature of mind, pure and luminous, temporarily obscured by the clouds of ignorance and attachment. These are not different truths spoken by different traditions. They are the same truth, expressed through different languages and symbols, pointing to the one reality that exists beyond all concepts and beliefs. You have forgotten who you are. This forgetting is not an accident or a mistake. It is part of the grand design of existence itself. The infinite creator, in its desire to know itself, divided its consciousness into countless individual sparks of awareness. Each spark was given the gift of forgetting its true nature, so that it might have the joy of remembering. Each spark was placed within the dream of separation, so that it might awaken to the truth of unity. You are one of these sparks. You are the infinite creator, playing the game of being a limited human being, so that you might rediscover your unlimited nature. The Buddha taught that all beings possess Buddha nature. This is not a poetic metaphor or a comforting belief. It is a direct description of reality. The same awareness that looked through the eyes of Siddhartha Gautama looks through your eyes right now. The same consciousness that achieved perfect enlightenment under the Bodhi tree is present within you at this very moment. The only difference is that the Buddha recognized this truth, while most beings continue to overlook it. Consider for a moment the nature of your awareness itself, not the thoughts that arise within awareness, not the emotions that color it, not the sensations that appear within it, but awareness itself. This awareness has no beginning and no end. It cannot be created or destroyed. It is not affected by the experiences that pass through it, just as the sky is not affected by the clouds that move across it. This awareness is your true nature. It is what you were before you were born, and what you will be after the body returns to the earth. The Vedic tradition speaks of 3 states of consciousness that ordinary beings experience: waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. But the sages point to a 4th state, which they call Turiya, the state of pure consciousness that underlies and pervades the other 3. In Turiya, you recognize yourself as the witness of all experiences, the unchanging awareness in which all changing phenomena arise and dissolve. This is not a special state that requires years of meditation to achieve. It is your natural condition, available to you right now, if only you would turn your attention inward and look. The path of awakening is not a journey from here to there. It is not a process of becoming something you are not. It is simply a matter of recognizing what you have always been. The spiritual traditions use the metaphor of polishing a mirror. The mirror does not need to be created. It already exists. But when it is covered with dust, it cannot reflect clearly. The dust of ignorance, attachment, and false identification must be wiped away, and then the mirror naturally reveals its reflective nature. Your suffering comes from a case of mistaken identity. You have taken yourself to be the body, the mind, the personality, the story of your life. These are appearances within consciousness, not consciousness itself. They are waves on the surface of the ocean, not the ocean. When you identify with the waves, you feel the turbulence of their rising and falling. When you recognize yourself as the ocean, you rest in the depth of stillness that remains untouched by surface movement. This does not mean that the body, mind, and personality are unreal or unimportant. They are the vehicles through which consciousness experiences the relative world. They are the instruments through which the infinite creator explores the possibilities of finite existence. But they are not who you are. A driver is not the car. A musician is not the instrument. You are the consciousness that uses these tools for the purpose of experience and evolution. The Buddha's first noble truth states that life contains suffering. This is often misunderstood as a pessimistic view of existence. In fact, it is simply an honest acknowledgement of what all beings experience. To be born in a body, to live in a world of constant change, to be attached to things that cannot last, naturally produces suffering. But the Buddha did not stop there. He went on to explain the cause of suffering, and more importantly, the end of suffering. The cause is attachment and craving. The end is the recognition of your true nature, which is beyond all attachment and craving. The Vedic tradition speaks of Maya, the cosmic illusion that makes the one appear as many. Maya is not meant to be a trap or a punishment. It is the creative power of consciousness that allows for the play of existence. Without Maya, there would be no universe, no individual beings, no possibility of experience. Maya is like a grand theatrical production, and you have been so absorbed in your role that you have forgotten you are the actor playing a part. The invitation of spiritual awakening is to remember that you are both the character in the play and the consciousness watching the play unfold. When you begin to recognize your true nature, everything changes and nothing changes. The world remains the same. Your body remains the same. Your circumstances remain the same. But your relationship to all of this transforms completely. You no longer take it so seriously. You no longer believe it to be the final truth. You see it as what it is, a beautiful, meaningful, temporary appearance within the infinite space of awareness. This recognition brings a profound peace that is independent of external circumstances. The Buddha called it nirvana, the cooling of the flames of craving and aversion. The Vedic sages called it moksha, liberation from the cycle of birth and death. It is not a place you go to after death. It is a recognition you can have right now, in this moment, exactly as you are. Part 2. The wisdom of karma and rebirth. The law of karma is one of the most misunderstood principles in spiritual teachings. Many people think of karma as a system of cosmic reward and punishment, like a divine judge keeping track of good and bad deeds. This is a superficial understanding that misses the deeper truth. Karma is simply the law of cause and effect operating in the realm of consciousness. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every action you perform creates an impression in the fabric of your being. These impressions, called samskaras in Sanskrit, shape your future experiences and tendencies. Imagine your consciousness as a vast field of fertile soil. Every mental and emotional state is like a seed planted in this soil. Seeds of anger plant future experiences of conflict. Seeds of love plant future experiences of connection. Seeds of fear plant future experiences of limitation. Seeds of trust plant future experiences of openness. You are not being punished or rewarded by some external force. You are simply harvesting the fruits of seeds you yourself have planted, often without awareness. This understanding brings both responsibility and freedom. It brings responsibility because you can no longer blame your circumstances on fate, luck, or other people. You must acknowledge that your present experience is, to a large degree, the result of your own past mental and emotional states. But it also brings freedom, because it means you have the power to change your future by changing your present thoughts, words, and actions. You are not a victim of karma. You are its creator. The Buddha spoke of 3 types of karma. Karma that is currently being created, karma that has been created but not yet ripened, and karma that is currently ripening and producing experiences. The first type, the karma being created now, is where you have the greatest power. In each moment, you can choose what seeds to plant. You can choose thoughts of loving kindness instead of thoughts of resentment. You can choose words of encouragement instead of words of criticism. You can choose actions that benefit others instead of actions that benefit only yourself. The karma that has been created but not yet ripened is like seeds stored in a warehouse. They exist, they have potential, but they have not yet sprouted. Through spiritual practice, particularly meditation and the cultivation of wisdom, it is possible to burn these seeds before they produce their fruits. This is why the sages emphasize the importance of daily practice. Each day of sincere practice weakens the old karmic seeds and prevents new harmful seeds from being planted. The karma that is currently ripening and producing experiences is the most challenging to work with. These are the circumstances of your present life, your body, your family, your place of birth, the challenges you face. This karma has already been activated and must run its course. But even here, you have choice in how you respond. 2 people can face the same difficult circumstance, and one becomes bitter while the other becomes wise. The circumstance is the same. The response is the key. The Vedic tradition teaches that the soul, or Atman, is eternal and unchanging. But the individual soul, or Jivatman, goes through a cycle of births and deaths, taking on different bodies in different realms according to its karma. This is not a punishment, but a learning opportunity. Each lifetime is a classroom where specific lessons can be learned. Each body is a vehicle suited for particular types of experience and growth. You have lived before. You will live again. The body you currently inhabit is just one of countless costumes your soul has worn in its long journey of awakening. Sometimes you have been male, sometimes female. Sometimes you have been born in wealth, sometimes in poverty. Sometimes you have been a spiritual seeker. Sometimes you have been lost in materialism. Each lifetime has contributed to your evolution, even the difficult ones, perhaps especially the difficult ones. The purpose of rebirth is not to trap you in an endless cycle of suffering. It is to give you the opportunity to learn, to grow, to purify your consciousness, and eventually to wake up from the dream of separation. When all lessons have been learned, when all karma has been resolved, when the light of true understanding has dawned, the cycle naturally comes to an end. This is what the Buddha called the ending of rebirth, not through destruction, but through awakening. Until that final awakening, you will continue to create karma and experience its fruits. This is not a cause for despair, but a recognition of the nature of the learning process. If you are still in school, you should focus on being a good student rather than resenting the fact that you haven't yet graduated. Each day is an opportunity to plant good seeds, to burn old karmic patterns, and to move closer to liberation. The concept of karma also applies to collective humanity. The thoughts and actions of all beings create a collective karma that shapes the world. When many beings think thoughts of greed, the world becomes more competitive and harsh. When many beings think thoughts of compassion, the world becomes more cooperative and kind. You participate in this collective karma, whether you are aware of it or not. By transforming your own consciousness, you contribute to the transformation of collective consciousness. This is why inner work is not selfish. When you meditate, when you cultivate loving kindness, when you work to purify your own mind, you are not just helping yourself. You are shifting the field of collective consciousness in a more positive direction. You are planting seeds that benefit all beings. The ripples of your inner transformation extend far beyond what your eyes can see. Part 3. The Art of Conscious Living. To live consciously means to be present in each moment, aware of what is happening within you and around you, rather than moving through life on autopilot. Most people spend their days lost in thought, reliving the past or anticipating the future, rarely actually present for the experience of being alive. They eat without tasting, listen without hearing, look without seeing. Their bodies are here, but their minds are elsewhere. The Buddha emphasized mindfulness as the foundation of all spiritual practice. Mindfulness is not a complicated technique. It is simply the quality of attention that notices what is happening in the present moment. When you are mindful of breathing, you actually feel the breath entering and leaving the body. When you are mindful of walking, you actually feel the feet touching the ground. When you are mindful of eating, you actually taste the food. This may sound simple, but if you try it, you will discover how rarely you are actually present. The reason presence is so important is that the present moment is the only place where life actually happens. The past exists only as memory, which is a present mental activity. The future exists only as imagination, which is also a present mental activity. The only time you can ever experience anything is now. The only time you can ever make a choice is now. The only time you can ever be alive is now. Everything else is a story in your mind. When you are not present, you miss your life. You miss the beauty of the sunrise because you are thinking about your problems. You miss the love in your child's eyes because you are worrying about tomorrow. You miss the taste of your food because you are planning your next meeting. Day after day, year after year, you miss moment after moment, and then you wonder where your life went. The greatest tragedy is not death. It is to have lived without having truly lived. Presence also reveals the truth of your nature. When you are fully present, without any mental commentary or interpretation, you touch a dimension of being that is beyond thought. In that silence, you recognize yourself as awareness itself, not as the one who is aware, but as awareness. This recognition, even if it lasts only a moment, transforms your understanding of who and what you are. The Vedic tradition speaks of three qualities that pervade all of nature: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva is the quality of clarity, peace, and wisdom. Rajas is the quality of activity, passion, and restlessness. Tamas is the quality of inertia, darkness, and ignorance. These three qualities exist in different proportions in all things, including your own mind. When sattva predominates, your mind is clear and calm, your perception is accurate, your actions are wise. When rajas predominates, your mind is restless and agitated, you are driven by desire and ambition, you act compulsively. When tamas predominates, your mind is dull and confused, you are prone to laziness and despair, you act from ignorance or not at all. The path of conscious living involves cultivating sattva while reducing rajas and tamas. This is done through various means. What you eat affects your mental state, so choose foods that promote clarity. What you expose your mind to affects your mental state, so choose inputs that elevate rather than agitate or deaden. How you spend your time affects your mental state, so engage in activities that develop wisdom and compassion. The company you keep profoundly affects your consciousness. If you spend time with people who are angry and complaining, you will find yourself becoming more angry and complaining. If you spend time with people who are peaceful and wise, you will find yourself becoming more peaceful and wise. The ancient teachings advise seeking the company of sages and avoiding the company of fools. This is not elitism. It is practical wisdom about how consciousness works. Your environment also shapes your inner state. A cluttered, chaotic environment promotes a cluttered, chaotic mind. A clean, ordered environment promotes a clear, calm mind. The external reflects the internal, and the internal reflects the external. By ordering your external world, you support the ordering of your internal world. Sleep is not merely rest for the body. It is a time when the soul processes its experiences and reconnects with its source. The quality of your sleep affects the quality of your waking consciousness. Going to bed with a disturbed mind produces disturbed sleep and a disturbed awakening. Going to bed in a state of peace and gratitude produces restful sleep and a peaceful awakening. Before sleep, it is beneficial to review your day with compassion and honesty. Notice where you acted in alignment with your highest understanding and feel gratitude. Notice where you fell short and set an intention to do better tomorrow. Do not condemn yourself. This only plants more negative seeds. Simply acknowledge what happened and resolve to grow from it. The morning hours are particularly powerful for spiritual practice. The mind is fresh, the world is quiet, and the energy of new beginning is present. If you can establish a regular morning practice of meditation, prayer, or contemplation, you will set the tone for the entire day. Even 15 minutes of sincere practice each morning can transform your life over time. Part 4. The nature of mind and thought. The mind is perhaps the most mysterious phenomenon in the universe. Scientists have studied the brain for centuries, yet consciousness itself remains unexplained. How do electrochemical processes in neural tissue give rise to subjective experience? How does matter become aware of itself? These questions point to the fundamental mystery of existence. The Buddhist and Vedic traditions approach the mind from a different direction. Rather than asking how consciousness arises from matter, they recognize that consciousness is primary and matter is its expression. The universe is not a collection of dead things that somehow produced life and awareness. The universe is consciousness itself, manifesting in countless forms, including what we call matter. Your individual mind is like a wave on the ocean of universal consciousness. It has a distinct appearance and movement, but it is never separate from the ocean. Every thought you have, every experience you undergo, occurs within this vast ocean of awareness. The wave thinks it is separate, but this is only a case of mistaken identity. When the wave recognizes its true nature as ocean, the sense of separation dissolves. Thoughts are not who you are. This is perhaps the most important insight on the spiritual path. You are not the thoughts that pass through your mind. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear and disappear. Just as you are not the clouds that pass through the sky, you are not the thoughts that pass through consciousness. Thoughts arise uninvited, stay for a while, and then dissolve. They are like guests passing through a house. You are the house, not the guests. Most people are completely identified with their thoughts. When they think I am angry, they believe they are anger. When they think I am afraid, they believe they are fear. When they think I am inadequate, they believe they are inadequate. This identification is the root cause of psychological suffering. As long as you believe you are your thoughts, you are at the mercy of whatever happens to arise in your mind. The practice of meditation creates space between awareness and thought. In meditation, you sit quietly and observe the activity of the mind. Thoughts arise, and instead of following them into stories and reactions, you simply notice them. Oh, there is a thought of worry. Oh, there is a thought of desire. Oh, there is a thought of self-criticism. Each time you notice a thought without identifying with it, you strengthen your recognition of yourself as awareness rather than as thought. This does not mean you should try to stop thinking. Trying to stop thinking is itself a thought, and it usually creates more mental activity, not less. The goal is not to have an empty mind, but to have a free relationship with whatever arises in the mind. Thoughts can come and go without disturbing your peace. Emotions can rise and fall without overwhelming your clarity. This is mental freedom, and it is available to anyone who practices. The content of your thoughts matters less than your relationship to your thoughts. You can have a worried thought without becoming a worried person. You can have an angry thought without acting from anger. You can have a fearful thought without being paralyzed by fear. The thought is just energy moving through consciousness. It has no power unless you give it power through identification and belief. This understanding is liberating because it means you are not responsible for what thoughts arise. Thoughts arise from causes and conditions beyond your conscious control. Many of them come from conditioning, from past experiences, from the collective unconscious. You did not choose to have the thoughts you have, but you are responsible for what you do with them. You can believe them or not. You can follow them or not. You can act on them or not. This is where your freedom lies. The ancient teachings speak of the monkey mind, the restless quality of ordinary mental activity. The mind jumps from thought to thought, like a monkey jumping from branch to branch, never still, always grasping for the next thing. This monkey mind is not a problem to be solved, but a phenomenon to be understood. When you try to fight the monkey, you give it energy. When you simply observe it with compassion and detachment, it gradually settles down. Deep meditation reveals states of consciousness where thought becomes very subtle or even ceases temporarily. In these gaps between thoughts, you directly experience your nature as pure awareness, unbounded, peaceful, inherently blissful. These experiences, though temporary, leave a lasting impression. You know from direct experience, not just from belief, that you are more than your thoughts. This knowledge transforms your life. Part 5. The path of the heart. Wisdom without compassion is incomplete. The spiritual path is not merely about gaining knowledge or achieving special states of consciousness. It is about transforming your relationship with all of life, opening your heart to embrace existence in its totality. The Buddha emphasized that wisdom and compassion are the two wings of enlightenment. A bird cannot fly with only one wing. Neither can consciousness awaken fully without developing both. Compassion arises naturally when you understand the nature of suffering. Every being wants to be happy and free from suffering. Every being is struggling in some way, caught in the web of confusion and attachment. When you look at other beings through the eyes of wisdom, you see not enemies or strangers, but fellow travelers on the path of awakening. You see beings who, like yourself, have been lost in the dream of separation and are trying to find their way home. The Buddhist teaching of loving kindness or metta, is a practice of cultivating this compassionate attitude toward all beings. It begins with yourself. If you cannot feel kindness toward yourself, you will struggle to feel it toward others. Many people carry deep wounds of self-rejection, harsh inner critics that tell them they are not good enough. The first task is to heal this wound by offering yourself the same kindness you would offer a beloved child. The practice involves silently repeating phrases of well-wishing. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. May I be filled with loving kindness. These are not magical words, but intentions that, with practice, shape the quality of your heart. When you truly wish yourself well, without conditions or reservations, something softens and opens within you. From yourself, you extend loving kindness to those you love easily, family, friends, those who have helped you. May they be happy. May they be peaceful. May they be free from suffering. May they be filled with loving kindness. As you bring these beings to mind and sincerely wish them well, your heart expands. Love is not a limited resource. The more you give, the more you have. Then comes the challenging part, extending loving kindness to neutral people, those you neither like nor dislike, the countless strangers you encounter in life. And even more challenging, extending loving kindness to difficult people, those who have hurt you or whom you find disagreeable. May they be happy. May they be peaceful. May they be free from suffering. May they be filled with loving kindness. This is not about condoning harmful behavior or suppressing legitimate feelings of anger. It is about recognizing that even those who harm others are suffering beings, caught in ignorance and confusion, planting seeds of future pain for themselves. When you can see the suffering behind the behavior, compassion naturally arises. This does not mean you allow harm to continue. You may still need to take action to protect yourself or others, but your heart remains open, wishing for the awakening of all beings, even those who act from darkness. The final stage of loving kindness practice is extending this well-wishing to all beings without exception. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. In this expansion, the boundaries of self and other dissolve. You recognize that the happiness of all beings is your happiness. The suffering of all beings is your suffering. You are not separate from the web of life. You are a node in that web, interconnected with all other nodes. The Vedic tradition speaks of the highest love as devotion to the divine, which is recognized as dwelling in all beings. When you see the divine in another, your love for them becomes worship. When you serve another, you serve the divine. The beggar on the street is God in disguise. The annoying coworker is God in disguise. The enemy is God in disguise. This is not a metaphor, but a description of reality for those with eyes to see. Service to others, called seva in Sanskrit, is a powerful spiritual practice. When you serve without seeking reward, when you give without expecting return, you weaken the grip of ego and open to a larger identity. The small self that is concerned only with its own pleasure and pain begins to dissolve into the larger self that embraces all beings. True service is not sacrifice. It is the natural expression of love. Forgiveness is essential on the path of the heart. As long as you carry resentment and grudges, your heart remains armored and closed. Forgiveness does not mean approving of what happened or allowing it to happen again. It means releasing the inner burden of anger and bitterness that only hurts you. The person who harmed you may be long gone, but as long as you carry unforgiveness, you remain chained to the past, reliving the hurt again and again. Consider this. Holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die. The resentment does not hurt them, it hurts you. It keeps the wound fresh, prevents healing, and distorts your perception of the present. By forgiving, you set yourself free. This does not happen all at once, especially for deep wounds. It is a process, a practice, a gradual releasing of what no longer serves you. Gratitude is another essential practice for the heart. When you focus on what you lack, you feel poor no matter how much you have. When you focus on what you have, you feel rich even in the midst of material poverty. Gratitude is not denial of difficulties. It is recognition that even in difficult times, there is something to appreciate. You are breathing. You have consciousness. You have the opportunity to awaken. These alone are immeasurable gifts. Begin and end each day with gratitude. In the morning, give thanks for the new day, for another opportunity to practice, to grow, to serve, to love. In the evening, give thanks for what the day brought, for its lessons and blessings, even if they came in difficult packages. This simple practice shifts your entire orientation toward life. Problems become opportunities. Obstacles become teachers. Enemies become helpers in disguise. Part 6. The illusion of separation. The fundamental error of human consciousness is the belief in separation. You believe yourself to be a separate entity, isolated within the boundaries of your skin, cut off from other beings and from the larger whole. This belief colors all your experiences and creates most of your suffering. It generates fear because the separate self feels vulnerable and alone. It generates desire because the separate self tries to become whole by acquiring things. It generates conflict because the separate selves compete for limited resources. But this separation is an illusion. The Vedic tradition calls it avidya, fundamental ignorance, the failure to see things as they really are. Modern physics has confirmed what the sages knew thousands of years ago. At the deepest level, reality is one unified field. What appears to be separate objects are really patterns of energy in this single field. The boundaries we perceive are not absolute divisions, but useful conventions that allow us to navigate the relative world. Consider your own body. You think of it as a separate object, clearly bounded by skin. But is it really separate? Every breath you take connects you with the atmosphere, which connects you with all other breathing beings. Every bite of food connects you with the plants and animals that provided it, with the soil that nourished them, with the sun that energized them. Every molecule in your body was once part of something else, a star, a rock, another being. You are not a separate thing. You are a process, a pattern of flow in the river of existence. And what about your mind? You think of your thoughts as private, as belonging to you alone. But where do your thoughts come from? They arise from language, which was created collectively. They arise from concepts, which were taught to you by others. They arise from experiences, which were shaped by your cultural context. The boundaries of your mind are as permeable as the boundaries of your body. You are not a separate thinker. You are a node in the network of human consciousness. The great mystics of all traditions have reported experiences of unity in which the boundaries of self dissolved, and they recognized themselves as one with all existence. This is not a hallucination or a delusion. It is a glimpse of reality beyond the veil of separation. In these moments, the question, "Who am I?" becomes meaningless, because there is no longer a separate I to ask the question. There is only this, the one reality appearing as all things. You do not need to have a mystical experience to understand the truth of non-separation. Simply reflect on the evidence. Every action you take affects others, and every action others take affects you. You cannot do anything in complete isolation because isolation does not exist. The food you eat, the clothes you wear, the thoughts you think, all connect you with countless other beings across space and time. The illusion of separation persists only because you are not paying attention. When you begin to see through the illusion of separation, your relationship with life transforms. Fear decreases because you realize there is no separate self to protect. Desire becomes less compulsive because you realize that wholeness cannot be achieved through acquisition. Conflict diminishes because you realize that harming others is harming yourself. What remains when these patterns dissolve is love, the natural response when separation is recognized as illusory. This does not mean that individuality disappears or that practical distinctions cease to matter. In the relative world, you still have a body, a name, a history, a set of responsibilities. You still need to eat, work, and care for those who depend on you. But you hold these things more lightly, knowing they are not the ultimate truth. You function in the world of separation, while knowing yourself as the non-separate awareness in which the world of separation appears. The Buddha used the metaphor of waves and water to illustrate this. Each wave appears to be a distinct entity with its own form and movement. Waves seem to conflict with each other, pushing and colliding, but all waves are made of the same water, and the water is not disturbed by the apparent conflict of waves. You are both wave and water. As wave, you participate in the play of forms. As water, you rest in the stillness that underlies all movement. The Vedic tradition uses the metaphor of space and the objects in space. Space appears to be divided by the walls of buildings, the boundaries of countries, the skins of bodies. But space itself is undivided. The space inside a room is not different from the space outside. When the walls collapse, the apparent division is revealed to have been an illusion all along. Similarly, the awareness that appears to be limited to your body is not different from the awareness that pervades the universe. When identification with the body dissolves, the illusion of limitation is revealed. Part 7. The practice of meditation. Meditation is the central practice of virtually all spiritual traditions. It is the technology through which the mind is trained, purified, and ultimately transcended. Without meditation, spiritual understanding remains theoretical, a matter of belief rather than direct experience. With meditation, the truths that sages have pointed to become your own living reality. There are many forms of meditation, suited to different temperaments and stages of development. But all genuine meditation practices share certain common features. They involve withdrawing attention from the external world and turning it inward. They involve some form of anchoring the mind, whether on the breath, a mantra, a visual image, or simply the sense of being present. They involve observing the activity of the mind without being carried away by it. The Buddha taught a practice called mindfulness of breathing, or anapanasati. This simple yet profound technique has been practiced for over 2,000 years and has helped countless beings to awaken. The instruction is straightforward. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and bring your attention to the sensations of breathing. When the mind wanders, which it will, gently return to the breath. This practice does several things simultaneously. It calms the nervous system because slow, conscious breathing activates the parasympathetic response. It trains the attention because returning to the breath again and again builds the muscle of focused awareness. It reveals the nature of mind because observing thoughts come and go shows you that you are not your thoughts, and it creates a foundation for deeper insights because only a calm, focused mind can penetrate the veils of illusion. Begin with short sessions of 10 or 15 minutes. Trying to meditate for hours at the beginning usually leads to frustration and discouragement. Consistency matters more than duration. It is better to meditate for 15 minutes every day than for 2 hours once a week. The effects of meditation are cumulative. Each session builds on the previous ones, gradually transforming your consciousness. Do not expect meditation to feel good all the time. Sometimes it will be peaceful and pleasant. Sometimes it will be agitated and difficult. Sometimes you will have profound insights. Sometimes your mind will seem like a wild animal. All of these experiences are part of the process. The goal is not to have a particular kind of experience, but to develop equanimity with whatever experience arises. The Vedic tradition emphasizes mantra meditation, the repetition of sacred sounds. The most universal mantra is Om, said to be the sound of the universe itself, the primordial vibration from which all creation emerges. When you chant Om, you align your vibration with the vibration of the cosmos. Other mantras invoke specific qualities or deities, directing the mind toward particular aspects of the divine. In mantra meditation, you repeat the mantra either aloud, in a whisper, or silently in the mind. When the attention wanders, you gently bring it back to the mantra. Over time, the mantra penetrates deeper levels of consciousness, eventually dissolving into silence. In that silence, you touch the source from which all sounds arise. Visualization meditation uses the power of imagination to transform consciousness. In Tibetan Buddhist practice, for example, you might visualize yourself as an enlightened being, dwelling in a pure land, radiating light and compassion to all beings. This is not pretending or fantasizing. It is using the creative power of mind to align yourself with your highest potential. What you visualize consistently tends to manifest in your experience. Inquiry meditation, such as the practice of asking, "Who am I made famous by the Indian sage Ramana Maharshi?" uses the mind's questioning ability to penetrate beyond the mind. When you ask, "Who am I?" with sincere intention, the mind naturally tries to find an answer. But no answer satisfies, because you are not any object that can be identified. In this failure to find an answer, awareness falls back on itself and recognizes its own nature. Whatever form of meditation you practice, certain attitudes support the process. Patience is essential because transformation takes time. Gentleness is essential because forcing creates resistance. Persistence is essential because the mind will find countless excuses to avoid practice. Humility is essential because spiritual pride is a subtle trap. And surrender is essential because ultimately, you cannot awaken yourself. You can only create the conditions and allow awakening to happen. The effects of meditation extend far beyond the time spent in formal practice. Regular meditators report being more calm, more focused, more resilient in daily life. They react less automatically to triggers. They experience more moments of spontaneous peace and joy. Their relationships improve as they become less defensive and more present. Scientific research has confirmed these benefits and added others. Reduced stress hormones, improved immune function, changes in brain structure associated with well-being. But the ultimate purpose of meditation is not to gain benefits for the separate self. It is to dissolve the illusion of the separate self altogether. In the depths of meditation, when thought has become very subtle, when even the sense of being a meditator has faded, there is only pure awareness, unbound and unlimited. This is your true nature, temporarily revealed by the stilling of mental activity. The more you touch this nature in meditation, the more it becomes your living reality in daily life. Part 8. working with difficult emotions. On the spiritual path, you will inevitably encounter difficult emotions: fear, anger, sadness, shame, jealousy, despair. These are not obstacles to awakening. They are opportunities for awakening. The way you relate to difficult emotions determines whether they become gateways to freedom or prisons that keep you bound. The typical human response to difficult emotions is either suppression or expression. Suppression means pushing the emotion down, refusing to acknowledge it, pretending it does not exist. This may seem like a sophisticated response, but the emotion does not actually go away. It goes underground, where it continues to influence your behavior unconsciously. Suppressed emotions often manifest as physical tension, illness, or sudden explosive outbursts. Expression means acting out the emotion, giving it free rein to determine your words and actions. When you are angry, you yell or strike. When you are afraid, you flee or freeze. When you are sad, you wallow in grief. This may feel more authentic than suppression, but it reinforces the emotion, carving deeper grooves in your neural pathways, making the emotion more likely to arise and more difficult to manage in the future. The spiritual approach to difficult emotions is neither suppression nor expression. It is awareness, or what could be called conscious experiencing. You allow the emotion to be present, fully present, without either pushing it away or acting it out. You feel it in your body, observe it in your mind, and maintain the awareness that you are not the emotion, but the space in which it arises. When you bring awareness to an emotion, several things happen. First, you discover that emotions are not solid, permanent things, but fluid energies that arise, peak, and pass away. An emotion that seems overwhelming will, if you simply observe it without reacting, typically dissolve within minutes. Second, you discover that underneath surface emotions often lie deeper layers. Anger may be covering hurt. Fear may be covering vulnerability. Sadness may be covering love. Third, and most importantly, you discover that you can survive emotions. Many people carry a deep fear that their emotions will overwhelm or destroy them. This fear keeps them suppressing or compulsively expressing, never actually meeting the emotion fully. When you sit with a difficult emotion, breathing, observing, allowing, you learn that it cannot hurt you. It is just energy moving through consciousness. This is profoundly liberating. Fear is perhaps the most fundamental difficult emotion, underlying many others. Fear arises from the sense of being a separate, vulnerable self in a threatening world. When you believe you are a limited body and mind, there is indeed much to fear: loss, pain, failure, death. But when you recognize your true nature as unlimited awareness, fear loses its grip. What can threaten that which was never born and will never die? This does not mean that fear disappears entirely. As long as you have a body, certain instinctive fears will arise to protect it. But there is a vast difference between natural protective fear and the constant corrosive anxiety that characterizes much of human life. The latter is based on identification with the small self. When this identification loosens, so does the anxiety. Anger is another common difficult emotion. On the surface, anger seems directed outward, at someone or something that has caused harm or injustice. But look more closely, and you will find that anger often hides hurt or fear. Someone has threatened your sense of safety, your image, your expectations. The anger is a defensive reaction, a way of protecting the vulnerable small self. This does not mean anger is never justified or useful. There is such a thing as righteous anger, the powerful energy that arises in response to genuine injustice and motivates action. The Buddha was not passive in the face of suffering. He actively worked to create conditions for the liberation of all beings. But there is a difference between acting from clear perception and acting from reactive emotion. The first is effective. The second usually creates more suffering. Sadness and grief are natural responses to loss. Life involves loss. Loved ones die, relationships end, circumstances change. To be alive is to experience grief. But grief, like all emotions, can become stuck if it is suppressed, or if it becomes intertwined with mental stories. The pure energy of grief naturally moves through and completes itself. When you add thoughts like, "It shouldn't have happened," or "I will never recover," you keep the grief alive artificially. Shame is a particularly toxic emotion because it attacks the core sense of self. Guilt says, "I did something bad." Shame says, "I am bad." Many people carry deep shame from early experiences of being criticized, rejected, or abused. This shame operates like a hidden virus, corrupting all areas of life, making genuine self-love nearly impossible. Healing shame requires bringing it into the light of awareness and compassion. The shameful parts of yourself that you have hidden and rejected need to be seen and accepted, not because the behaviors were acceptable, but because hiding parts of yourself from yourself prevents wholeness. What you cannot embrace, you cannot heal. What you cannot heal continues to control you from the shadows. The practice of self-compassion is essential for working with all difficult emotions. Meet each emotion with kindness, as you would meet a frightened child. The emotion is not your enemy. It is part of your human experience, part of your learning process. When you can hold your own suffering with tenderness, you develop the capacity to hold the suffering of others. And this capacity, this compassionate heart that excludes nothing, is the very essence of awakening. Part 9. Living in the world without being of the world. A common misconception about spiritual awakening is that it requires withdrawal from ordinary life. The image of the meditating monk in the mountain cave captures the imagination, but it represents only one possibility among many. For most people, the path of awakening unfolds within the context of family, work, and social responsibilities. The challenge is to live in the world without being of the world, to participate fully in life without losing yourself in it. The Buddha himself, after his awakening, did not remain in isolated bliss. He spent 45 years traveling, teaching, building community, engaging with the political and social issues of his time. He demonstrated that awakening is not escape from life, but more complete engagement with it. The awakened being is not detached in the sense of not caring. They are detached in the sense of not being controlled by outcomes. This is the essence of karma yoga, as taught in the Bhagavad Gita. Act without attachment to the fruits of action. You do what needs to be done, with full commitment and energy, but you do not depend on the results for your peace and happiness. If the action succeeds, good. If it fails, also good. Either way, you have done your part, and the outcome is not ultimately in your control. This attitude transforms work from drudgery to spiritual practice. Instead of working primarily for money, status, or security, you work as an offering, as service, as an expression of your gifts. The doctor heals because healing is her dharma, her sacred duty, not primarily for the fee. The teacher teaches because teaching is his dharma, not primarily for recognition. When work is done in this spirit, it becomes a form of worship. Family relationships offer particularly rich opportunities for spiritual growth. Intimate relationships reveal parts of yourself that you might otherwise never see. They push your buttons, activate your wounds, and challenge your patience. This is not a problem. It is a gift. Your partner, your children, your parents are your most powerful teachers if you approach the relationships with openness and willingness to learn. The Vedic tradition recognizes that different life stages call for different relationships with worldly engagement. The first stage, brahmacharya, is for study and development of character. The second stage, grihastha, is for family life and productive work. The third stage, vanaprastha, is for gradual withdrawal from worldly responsibilities and increased focus on spiritual practice. The fourth stage, sannyasa, is for complete renunciation and preparation for death. This does not mean you cannot pursue spiritual awakening during the householder stage. It means you do so within the context of your responsibilities, not by abandoning them. Your family, your job, your community are the field in which you practice. They are not obstacles to awakening. They are the very curriculum through which awakening unfolds. Money and material possessions are neither good nor bad in themselves. They are tools that can be used skillfully or unskillfully. The problem is not having money, but being attached to money, believing that it can provide the security and happiness that only awakening can provide. The wealthy person who holds wealth lightly, using it for the benefit of others, is more spiritually advanced than the poor person who is consumed by desire for wealth. The Buddha spoke of the middle way, avoiding the extremes of both self-indulgence and self-mortification. You need not live in luxury, but you need not live in deliberate poverty either. Your body needs adequate food, shelter, and care to function as a vehicle for consciousness. Denying these needs does not make you more spiritual. It just makes you distracted by physical discomfort. In your interactions with others, practice seeing the divine in each person. This is easier said than done when someone is annoying, criticizing, or opposing you. But this is precisely when the practice is most needed and most powerful. Can you see past the surface behavior to the suffering being underneath? Can you remember that this person, like you, wants to be happy and is struggling in their own way to find peace? Social and political engagement is not separate from spiritual practice. The world is crying out for wisdom and compassion, and those who have touched these qualities have a responsibility to embody them in action. This does not mean imposing your views on others. It means acting from love rather than fear, seeking understanding rather than victory, building bridges rather than walls. At the same time, beware of spiritual bypassing, using spiritual ideas to avoid dealing with difficult realities. Some people retreat into meditation as a way of escaping the challenges of life. Some use concepts like, it's all an illusion, to dismiss injustice or to avoid the hard work of personal growth. Authentic spirituality faces life directly, including its difficulties, its injustices, its demands. The goal is not to transcend humanity, but to become fully human, present, aware, compassionate, engaged. The awakened person does not float above life in some disembodied bliss. They are grounded in the body, in the moment, in the relationships and responsibilities of their particular existence. They laugh, they cry, they work, they rest. But through it all, they maintain awareness of their true nature as the unlimited consciousness in which the drama of life unfolds. Part 10. Death and the continuity of consciousness. Death is the great teacher that awaits each of us. It is the final examination of our life's learning, the ultimate test of our spiritual realization. How we meet death reveals how we have lived, and how we have lived determines how we will meet death. The wise person does not wait until the final moment to think about death. They contemplate it regularly, allowing the awareness of mortality to inform and deepen their living. The Buddha advised his followers to keep death as their constant advisor. This is not morbid or pessimistic. It is realistic and ultimately liberating. When you truly grasp that your time in this body is limited, your priorities naturally realign. The petty concerns that consume so much mental energy lose their power. The important things come into focus: love, wisdom, service, awakening. Most people live as if they will live forever, at least unconsciously. They postpone what matters, assuming there will always be more time. They fill their days with trivialities, leaving the important things for later. But later may never come. Any day could be your last. Any breath could be your last. This is not cause for panic, but for presence. Live each day as if it were your last, not because it might be, but because this attitude brings out the best in you. The Tibetan Buddhist tradition has developed detailed teachings about the death process and what follows. These teachings describe the dissolution of the elements that make up the body-mind, the arising of various visions, and the opportunities for liberation that appear at each stage. According to this tradition, the moment of death offers a supreme opportunity for awakening, because the structures of ego that normally obscure our true nature temporarily dissolve. The Vedic tradition teaches that the soul, the Atman, is eternal and indestructible. What we call death is simply the soul leaving one body, as one might leave one house to enter another. The soul carries with it the accumulated karma and tendencies from all previous lives. These determine the circumstances of the next birth, the type of body, the family, the location, the general outline of opportunities and challenges. Between lives, the soul exists in subtle realms where it experiences the fruits of past actions and prepares for future learning. These realms are not permanent heavens or hells, but temporary states, beautiful or painful, according to the quality of consciousness that the being has developed. Eventually, the soul returns to embodiment to continue its evolution. This does not mean that what happens after death is the same for everyone. The quality of your consciousness at the moment of death profoundly affects what follows. If you die in fear and confusion, you will navigate the after-death states in fear and confusion. If you die in peace and clarity, you will navigate them in peace and clarity. This is why spiritual practice is so important. It prepares you for the ultimate passage. Many traditions emphasize the importance of the final thought at the moment of death. Whatever you are focused on in that moment becomes your direction. If you are attached to the things of the world, you will be pulled toward rebirth by that attachment. If you are resting in awareness of your true nature, you have the opportunity to realize liberation. This is not a matter of luck, but of preparation. What you practice throughout life becomes your spontaneous response in the moment of death. For the person who has realized their true nature, death holds no fear. They know that they are not the body that dies, but the awareness that witnesses the body's dissolution. They have already died to identification with the small self during their lifetime. Physical death is just the completion of a process that began with spiritual awakening. The grief that survivors feel at the death of a loved one is natural and should not be suppressed. It is the price we pay for love, and it is worth paying. But grief can coexist with understanding. We can mourn the loss of the physical presence while knowing that consciousness continues. We can miss the person we knew while trusting that they have moved on to whatever serves their continued evolution. Honor the dead by living well. The best tribute to those who have passed is not prolonged grief, but the fullness of your own life. Let their death remind you to live with presence and purpose. Let their absence deepen your appreciation for those still present. Let your mourning soften your heart and open you to love more fully. In the end, we are all on the same journey, whether we know it or not. We are consciousness, temporarily wearing bodies, having experiences, learning lessons, slowly awakening to our true nature. Some are at the beginning of the journey, some are near the end, but the destination is the same. The recognition that we are and have always been the one infinite awareness that plays all the roles, lives all the lives, and knows itself through every experience of the dream. This is the great secret that the sages have whispered through the ages. This is the truth that sets us free. You are not what you think you are. You are the infinite itself, pretending to be a finite being on a cosmic adventure of forgetting and remembering. When you remember fully, the adventure does not end. It becomes a celebration. Life becomes lighter, death becomes a doorway, and the whole of existence reveals itself as a dance of love. Part 11. The Ancestral Stream and Karmic Lineage. You did not begin with this birth, and you do not exist in isolation. You are part of a vast stream of consciousness that flows through generations, carrying with it the memories, patterns, and unresolved experiences of all who came before you. This is the ancestral stream, the karmic lineage that shapes so much of your present experience without your conscious awareness. Every family carries a kind of collective karma. Patterns of behavior, emotional tendencies, relationship dynamics, even physical health issues tend to repeat across generations. The grandparents' unhealed trauma manifests in the parent's anxiety, which manifests in the child's depression. The great-grandmother's forbidden grief echoes through time, touching descendants who never knew her story. This is not mystical speculation. It is the observable reality of inherited trauma and family system dynamics. But the ancestral stream carries gifts as well as wounds. The strength that allowed your ancestors to survive hardships lives in you. The wisdom they accumulated through experience is available to you. The love they felt for their children, passed down through generations, continues in the love that moves through you. You are the inheritor of both the burdens and the blessings of all who came before. Healing ancestral patterns is part of your spiritual work. When you work on yourself, you are not only healing your own wounds, but also the wounds of your lineage. What you resolve does not pass on to your children. What you awaken in yourself becomes available to all who share your bloodline, past and future. This is a profound responsibility and a profound opportunity. Practices for ancestral healing include honoring the dead through ritual, prayer, or simple acknowledgement. They include learning about your family history, understanding the circumstances that shaped your ancestors. They include forgiveness work, releasing the anger and blame you may carry toward those who harmed you or who passed on harmful patterns. And they include inner dialogue with ancestors, inviting their guidance and offering them your love. In many traditional cultures, ancestor veneration is central to spiritual life. The ancestors are not gone. They have merely moved to another dimension of existence. They continue to care about their descendants and can be called upon for guidance and protection. Modern Western culture has largely lost this connection, and many people feel rootless and isolated as a result. You need not believe in literal spirits to benefit from ancestral practices. Even as psychological exercises, engaging with your ancestral lineage brings insight and healing. When you trace the roots of your patterns back through generations, you gain compassion for yourself and for those who pass them to you. When you intentionally cultivate qualities that were lacking in your lineage, you become a transformative presence in the stream. Consider what patterns you are passing on. Your children, if you have them, are watching and absorbing more than you realize. The way you handle emotions, the way you treat yourself and others, the beliefs you express, and the ones you secretly hold, all of these become part of their programming. You are now the ancestor of future generations. What will your legacy be? This understanding places your personal spiritual work in a larger context. You are not just transforming yourself for your own benefit. You are a link in a chain that stretches from the distant past to the far future. The consciousness you awaken, the patterns you heal, the love you embody, ripple backward and forward through time. Your awakening is an offering to all your relations, seen and unseen. Part 12. Final contemplations and the return to the source. We have journeyed together through many teachings, exploring the nature of the self, the workings of karma, the art of conscious living, the wisdom of meditation, and the path of the heart. All of these teachings point to a single truth that cannot be captured in words, but can only be directly recognized. You are that which you seek. The seeker and the sought are one. The spiritual path is often described as a journey, but this is a provisional teaching, useful in the beginning, but ultimately misleading. A journey implies a distance to be traveled, a goal to be reached, a self that is here trying to get there. But where can you go to find what you already are? How can you become what you have never ceased to be? The goal is not distant. It is closer than your next breath. It is the very awareness that is reading these words right now. This is why the sages often say that awakening is not an achievement, but a recognition. It is not something you create through effort, but something you notice when effort ceases. All the practices and teachings are meant to exhaust the seeking mind, to bring you to the point where you give up trying to find enlightenment and simply rest in what is. And in that resting, what has always been obvious becomes obvious again. Do not be discouraged if this recognition has not yet stabilized. For most beings, awakening is a gradual process with moments of clarity alternating with periods of forgetting. Each time you remember, even for a moment, the memory becomes stronger. Each time you notice the awareness that is prior to thought, the noticing becomes more habitual. Over time, what was an occasional glimpse becomes a continuous recognition, and what was an effort becomes effortless. The final obstacle is often the desire for awakening itself. As long as you are seeking enlightenment, you are affirming the existence of a separate self who is not yet enlightened. This self can never become enlightened because it does not actually exist. It is a fiction, a character in the dream of separation. When the character stops seeking its own transcendence and simply looks at what is looking, the game reveals itself as a game. This does not mean you should stop practicing. Practice continues, but the motivation changes. You no longer practice to get somewhere, but as an expression of where you already are. Meditation is not a means to an end, but the natural activity of consciousness delighting in itself. Service is not an attempt to gain merit, but the spontaneous overflow of love. Teaching is not an ego trip, but the natural desire to share what has been seen. And life goes on. After the great realization, there is still laundry to do, bills to pay, relationships to navigate. The difference is that these activities no longer carry the weight of ultimate significance. They are part of the play, enjoyable or challenging as the case may be, but not defining who you are. You wear your life lightly, like a loose garment, knowing that you are the one who wears it, not the garment itself. The one infinite creator knows itself through you. Every experience you have, every thought you think, every emotion you feel, is the creator experiencing itself in finite form. Your joys are its joys. Your sorrows are its sorrows. Your awakening is its awakening, to and through this particular point of view called you. When this is fully understood, the whole of existence is revealed as a love story, not the sentimental love of romantic fiction, but the vast, impersonal, all-encompassing love that is the very substance of reality. This love does not depend on conditions. It is what everything is made of. It does not need to be created. It only needs to be recognized. And when it is recognized, there is nothing more to seek, nothing more to become. There is only this, forever. May these words serve your awakening. May the truth they point to become your direct experience. May you recognize yourself as the consciousness that has been seeking itself through the appearance of seeking. May you rest in peace that passes understanding, the peace that you are. And may all beings everywhere awaken to their true nature, free from suffering and the causes of suffering, abiding in wisdom and compassion, benefiting each other spontaneously and endlessly, until the whole of creation is illuminated by the light of awakening. This is the prayer of the ancient ones. This is the intention of all true teaching. This is the purpose of your being here. Let it be so. Om Shanti, Shanti Shanti. Peace in body, peace in speech, peace in mind. All is one. You are that. Awaken and remember. The journey ends where it began. Welcome home.